We know that it was mentioning of the Mr. Tick policy, and we know that the minimum requirements teaching qualification policy, which was revised in 2015, looks at evaluating teacher education programs, and it provides institutions with guidelines for the development of programs and curricula for their specific qualification types. However, with regards to Mr. Tech, there is the absence of clear guidelines in terms of the best practice pedagogical approaches that can be implemented. So there's a mention of the knowledge mixes, but what I want to look at specifically is using specific pedagogies that can also be used to assist our own assessment here at CPUT. So much of my teaching incorporates the use of educational technology, more specifically the use of computer-mediated collaborative learning, because of the fact that it has a positive influence on student achievement, and that's what the research actually shows. So I use Blackboard, specifically I use asynchronous discussion forums. Now most of you would be involved in what is known as synchronous discussion forums through the form of WhatsApp. So when you communicate synchronously, whereas with asynchronous discussion forums, we have emails and we also have group discussions through our learning management system. So research also shows that face-to-face environments may acquire significant benefits from asynchronous discussion forums. Now, most of my research also used specifically online blogs together with the use of an enriching film as an adjunct teaching medium. So the idea behind it is to develop critical intellectual dialogue amongst our pre-service teachers as a means of cultivating what we refer to as micro-communities. So the use of asynchronous discussion forums in supporting computer-mediated collaborative learning actually stems from the work of John Dewey, and he emphasizes collaborative constructivism. Constructivism is considered, or with regards to constructivism, learning is considered, which rather learning should be authentic, and that learning needs to resonate with the real life experiences. So in much of my teaching, I use film so that I'm able to assist my students in transforming specific social and economic contexts. And I use the asynchronous discussion forums as a means of ensuring that my students engage on the specific film as a means of reflecting on each of their own social and economic contexts. So with regards to asynchronous discussion forums, the community of inquiry framework is quite a prominent framework, and it was a framework developed by Canadian researchers, where we look at enhancing the cognitive presence, the social presence, and also the teaching presence amongst students in universities. So through the discussion forums that I have on Blackboard, I usually assess them based on this framework. For instance, if I look at the cognitive presence, I look at how the film, for instance, triggered their thoughts, and how they were able to explore some of the various themes from the film and making connections between the discourses of the film. For instance, with the social presence, and this is something I found with regards to Blackboard itself, is that because of the fact that Blackboard is so much different to a social media platform in the sense that it rather restricts students from being able to always engage with one another, showing rather effective expression, where they're able to show a little bit more emotion towards their fellow peers in the specific learning platform system. I've also found out that open communication is not always as high on Blackboard, whereas with a social media platform such as Facebook, students are much more, they show more effective expression, they are more open, and they contribute towards this group cohesion and ultimately the community of inquiry. Also, with regards to the community of inquiry framework, is the teaching presence, which is also quite important. And what I found out with regards to the research I've done is that in some instances, the students actually they tend to play facilitative roles. It also depends on the leadership attributes that we have amongst some of our students. However, what I found with regards to the use of both film and blogs is that cognitive presence is always the highest in relation to the other presences. So the film that I use for my business education students is the film Who Cares? It's a film that focuses on cultivating social justice with. So, as I mentioned, we need to be looking at how we can transform students towards the context, and therefore I focus quite a lot on adopting the blended learning approach. So the learning management systems that are available to universities and to schools is that we use Blackboard. There's also Facebook. There are other learning management systems such as Edmodo, Google Classroom, and then also Moodle. But I found that with regards to the schools is that a lot of the teachers are reluctant to use Moodle because of the fact that you actually have to develop the learning management system. And in this regard, Google Classroom is the most popular amongst many of the schools themselves. So this is just a sample of the screenshots that I take from Blackboard. So what I use with regards to my research, I look at the specific frameworks and I take screenshots of the dialogical engagements amongst my students, and I code it using, for instance, the computer program, something called Atlas TI, to code my comments. And as I mentioned, with regards to different framework, I found that again the subject matter and the cognitive capacities were enhanced through the engagements between the students. Here's another sample of a screenshot between some of the students. And with regards to the engagements online, I have to assess them. So I created a rubric to evaluate the discussions in terms of cognitive capacity, the critical thinking skills, the quality of the post as well, and more importantly also contributing towards the community of inquiry. The nice thing of doing this approach is that it also assisted me with my service learning project because a lot of students were involved in discussing the film. They were not involved in actually implementing it. So future research is looking at how the learning management system, together with the film, actually assisted students in their service learning projects. So some of the outcomes with regards to the research that I had is that the critical engagements enhanced as a result of the coding questions that I designed. So initiating students into the discourse of social justice is integral in establishing the foundations, principles, and values of socially conscious students. The blended learning approach in combination with film has the potential in strengthening students' social consciousness together towards communities with a hope that it becomes part of the disciplines in the school environment. So I think this was also mentioned earlier, so how we can actually prepare the students for their own school context. So that is also quite important with regards to the blended learning approach. Some of the findings that I have had with regards to my research is that adopting a constructivist learning approach in higher education through the use of ADF is important as it liberates learners to express their voices, something that was mentioned earlier, without any form of coercion on an online platform. With regards to autonomy, when students act autonomous, they are capable of challenging and amending their points of view with the aim of developing new, more informed and critical understandings of the topics that they discuss. Hopefully, they'll be able to cultivate this transformative change in their own communities as a means of creating a critical awareness of the students so that they are able to challenge their own context as a means of transforming the context for the betterment of their own societies. With regards to teaching, the idea behind the ADFs is to enhance the deliberative and inclusive engagements. However, what I found is that access to technology can be a major issue, specifically with Blackboard. I think we've all witnessed it before that there are teething issues with regards to Blackboard, and we should be looking at perhaps in some instances alternative platform systems as a means of ensuring that our students are also included. I know there was a mentioning of how, as CPUT, we want to be the leaders of technology, and this is something we should also be looking at for future, is developing our own massive open online course. I know UCT has a MOOC, Stellenbosch University also has the MOOC on African philosophy of education, and that's something that we should be looking at with regards to creating short courses so that we create a greater awareness of CPUT's level of education. Was also mentioning, and I'm rushing through this. Time?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
For now.
Okay. Okay. Online assessment and feedback. Most of my students engaging online blogs, as I mentioned, but also online tests. So if I can just show you. So I created tests for the students, but I know that Professor Sosigo also mentioned that perhaps if your test is too challenging to students, you need to look at how you can adapt it. And this is a test that I created last year. If I look at the test, you can actually analyze where the students actually perform poorly and where they actually perform strong, so that you are able to adapt it so that it's either you can either make it a little bit more challenging or make it a little bit slightly easier so that they're able to interpret your terminology and so forth. So this is something that we can use with Blackboard. I won't be able to show you this because it's a workshop that would need to be conducted to explain how to do that. Also, with regards to our own teaching practices, is that we need to evaluate how we teach. And the survey, you can use Blackboard to create your own surveys. For instance, ascertaining how you speak clearly, or how fast you're able to teach the content. And I think it's a useful barometer with regards to enhancing your own teaching and assessment practices. Now, this is something I also wanted to speak about. Oh, also with regards to the way you teach and the way you assess, you can use Facebook to create a poll so that you are able to ascertain students' experiences of your assessments. Something I'm going to look at now is that, just briefly, is creating the e-portfolio. And the website that I use is Google Sites. Okay, so Google Sites is the website you can use to create your e-learning platform. That's something I'll look at. Something that's also very important with regards to the blended learning approach is that if you are not able to teach a specific topic, why not record the video of your session? So there are various software programs available. There's OBS Studio Review, and you can screen record your PowerPoint presentation and then upload it onto your website. This is the other software program. I'll just show you quickly. Okay, this is my website that I created. So, for instance, with the Teaching Excellence Awards, we're required to, for instance, address some of these instances. So I create, for instance, a teaching portfolio, a research portfolio, service learning, and there's also media. And under media, I create various videos to assist lecturers with Blackboard and also to assist my own students with lessons. So this is a few videos that I created for my students. For instance, how to access content, how to upload an assignment, how to join a group on Blackboard. And for lecturers, I have videos on how to create online tests using responders. I know there's a training workshop now, so if you don't want to attend it, you can always just watch the video. And there's also a video on how to mark student assignments and tests online. So if you want my website, I can share the link with Dr. Mida and he can share it with you. You can watch the videos if you want to. So that's what I do with regards to my own portfolio. And then also, the teaching practice evaluation tool. Something that I created an electronic version of the teaching practice evaluation tool. So I'm going to show it to you. Okay, this is more or less how it looks. So this was based on the teaching practice tool that we have for FET. So, for instance, the name of the student number, grade taught, subject taught, you can fill in all this information and evaluate the student in terms of his lesson plan. You can tick. Okay, you can actually do that now. Okay. So usually you can complete this and then you can submit it to the student and they can see how they perform in their own teaching. And this is something that can also be used by the teachers in the schools. If they are provided with an evaluation tool, they can assess the students and the students can receive this evaluation tool. So if it's something you want, I can share this as well. And then also, with regards to the e-portfolio, I know that's something we should also be looking at, how students can create e-portfolios so as to address the issue of the fees must fall. I know that a few years ago, we had to meet in certain sections so that portfolios could be blocked off. If you have an e-portfolio, then the assessor can evaluate it anytime or not, and you would not have to have the physical copy of the e-portfolio. Just in terms of the other, just going to show you, I use all platform systems. So I use Blackboard, I use Facebook also as a learning management system with my third year students. And as I mentioned, I found that the students are a little bit more engaging. They're more open to ideas and they like to debate and discuss, for instance, in this regard, the film that they were required to view. And the other learning management systems include the following: is Edmodo. So this is the platform system of Edmodo, and there's also Google Classroom that you can use, that the students can use where they teach. Okay. Okay, yeah. So just if you're interested in learning about the research that I've conducted with regards to the use of Blackboard as an e-learning platform system, together with blogs and films, I've written 2 articles over here, and I've used Blackboard for my own research. So you can use it to collect your data in that regard. Okay, thank you.
Just before we go to the last set of questions, is the register visible anyway? I'll come and get it then. Are there any questions that we have for Zaid? Right, Lawrence?
One of the proponents of the theory of community inquiry, he said the framework can be used mainly on online platforms such as Blackboard. Is it suitable to use it now for when someone is teaching using social media, for example, Facebook and WhatsApp?
Yes, definitely. You can use it on Facebook. You can use it also with. I know there was a research also. There's a different framework. They used a different framework with regards to Twitter. Or I haven't seen really research on WhatsApp as a communication platform, but definitely the community of inquiry is definitely appropriate to Facebook as a social media platform.
Can Google Drive be used for communication with students? Because we have this FOIL project, which is something similar to this, but with our partner in Belgium.
Yeah.
So it's connected to groups of students.
Yes.
And they suggested that we use Google Drive. Our problem is, our students' problem is, that they don't always have data.
Yeah. It's a major issue.
Yeah.
If they don't have data, then they can't access Google Drive. The thing is with Google Drive, you have to download the file. But if you have an e-portfolio website, we still have to download it. But
She's got a question.
oh, okay, so
Are you going to answer?
yes, just do you have
No,
a,
I'm just taking questions.
yeah, do you have an answer or?
Are you going to answer me?
No.
Oh, okay. There's a program it's called Lockdown Browser. It prevents students from switching tabs. They are stuck at that specific computer. No, it's actually installed on computers here. The only problem is that from my experience, lack of support does not allow me to actually implement it. And also because of the fact that some of the computers are extremely slow. So it's quite difficult to use Lockdown Browser. But that is the software that we should be using to prevent students from copying, switching tabs, and so.
You say only some of them.
Yeah.
Mamsu. Sorry, Lungi first and then Mamsu.
Thank you. Then I don't know if you have answered the question. No, that I posed earlier.
That's what I want
About the variety of assessments. How does the system allow for a variety of learning styles?
I wanted to answer that question.
And also, whether does this mode of assessment can it replace a teacher?
It will never replace a teacher. It's not enough.
So how do you make sure that it doesn't replace you?
Our problem is to do with technology, because we have biometric systems which will allow, especially login, like what I say, authenticity and technical issues, but if you have a biometric system where the person who writes the test actually sits in front of the screen, with iris or thumb, whatever, then locks on. Even locking on at the door there, it becomes a better issue. And then Blackboard is not intelligent. There are other intelligent systems where the learner, it gives you a done exercise before you answer. Then it decides your level of understanding. It will ask the same questions which are answered by an intelligent person. But it will give you, it is going to rephrase it in such a way that we'll be answering the same test, but the system, the way the person are presented to us, are presented at our own level. Those systems, they are there, but teachers, if teachers are scared of this technology. For example, there is the age block. One of the fast developing learning platforms, which is for free. My students, I taught them those, because they say one thing is school, one to check over. Where we say you can be a programmer without even going to school of programming, and you can do whatever you want to teach. Like what I said, classroom is good is for commercial purposes, but there are some which are not for commercial purposes. Which ones teach us? But as long as, like CPUT, like what I said, one be technology university, but like driving a car with influence on computers are not working and all those things. That's what's stopping us. Labs like where in fact we are preventing students from learning. Trying by all means to stop them and to be way far worse than us. But from his initiatives, that software is there, but it's not Blackboard, unfortunately. Because Blackboard, we always say, some of us, we are the open source type. We say, Blackboard, there are people who are teaching through Blackboard. Because they are paying, and universities are paying for the use of Blackboard. But most is for free. If you ask them, why do you pay for water in the tap when there's a river running across?
Steve Compare. Can that be the, oh sorry, Mamsi first and then last question.
My question to you is, number one is about reliability, not of the facility, but of, of the facility. We are considering our environment in time of students. So some of them, I would say we have big numbers. We don't have sufficient facilities. So if we are to maybe engage them in this device, how many of them will be able to access it? I'm talking now about the bigger numbers. That sometimes it will take students like maybe 3 weeks or a month to do whatever they're supposed to do because of the numbers. So that is the first thing, because if we just say we are going to adopt it and apply it across the board, we will find some limitation on the way. And students can actually be, can complain, and that would be justified, that we don't have enough devices sufficient for them. And secondly, the competences that you think could be assessed adequately using this, a Blackboard or Moodle or whatever. So maybe if you can help us who are teaching larger, like student board, so we will be maybe using Blackboard on particular competences and then maybe limiting, eliminating some of the burden that we have of marking certain tasks or checking on certain criteria on those tasks. So maybe on those two.
In terms of the first question, I definitely think that if we can address that issue, we need support. So if we do not have the support by the educational technology person, then we cannot address that issue. Addressing 200 computers is not a lecturer's fault. We need the support from the individual who's responsible for managing that issue. The second one is you can alter your assessment questions. So to address the competencies. I don't know if you're referring to those competencies that I looked at. If you're looking at a test, using responders as the software program can be used to create various types of questions, lower all the way to higher order thinking questions. Now, I found a lot of students struggle with case study questions because they do not know how to interpret case study, and neither do they know how to answer the question in the first place. So it all depends on how you are able to manage your assessment by, perhaps you could create sample tests for your students so that you initiate the test so that it triggers the higher or middle or lower order thinking questions. So with Blackboard you can create numerous sample tests, so it is possible to do that.
So can I just so in terms of, let's say, competencies as we have them in our guideline, that okay, for maybe foundational competencies where maybe I can put them a test or an examination, because that is all about checking their conceptual understanding, theoretical understanding of the particular discipline or disciplinary concept.
Yes.
So, but now, for me to take it to practical competence now where they have to demonstrate some of the things physically sometimes, and for, I think their record will be limited, as well as reflexive competences where they have to synchronize different concepts. So
the practical implication is difficult on Blackboard. However, nothing stops the student from creating his or her own video and uploading it on their website for you to view. That's something you could make.
Guys, we're going to have to call it quits there. And I know there are a lot of questions that are still existing. Do take it up with the different